Let's start with a history lesson, because sometimes looking backward in the industry helps showcase where we are going and why we are evolving to hunting and big data. This is a breakdown of the different generations of security operations, from 1G in the 1970s to 4G from 2006 to 2013. So you can see the progression. In the first generation era of security operations, the internet is still not a big deal for businesses. So it's mostly military, government, and universities using the internet. At that time, it was nice because as a security practitioner, if you wanted to see anything going on in your network, you had full access to all of the logs and you could simply look through them. It was easy to be familiar with what was happening in your network. As we moved to 2G, businesses started to adopt the internet, and you can see that there's a correlation with the kinds of security threats that emerge. This was when we saw lots of malware and big spreadable viruses like Melissa and I Love You. We also saw SIM technology like ArcSight launch because it was starting to become useful to bring all of this security data together. As we moved into the third generation, more businesses were adopting the internet, and we saw the severity and maturity of cybercrimes increase, and they became monetized. In the second generation era, nobody was making any money by creating a virus. They were just experimenting. Now, all of a sudden, it's monetized, which makes it much more dangerous. This is where we started to see compliance regulations like Sarbanes-Oxley and PCI. But we were really seeing the event problem explode too. In the first generation, we could have a pulse of what's going on in our environment by searching through our logs. But in the third generation of security operations, now we're getting outpaced by an event volume. This led to a big push to prioritize. Now we'd look at our top 10 vulnerabilities and have our SIM give us our top 10 alerts to take action on. We were starting to try to make sense of the event problem. The event problem was exacerbated in the fourth generation when we saw DDoS and hacktivism rise. This was the most scary threat environment, and we still had this event problem in this era. So we were just stuck with these big threats, tons of data, and no good ability to deal with it. So that shows you how we got to where we are, and that now the big disruptor is we have affordable big data. We can start playing around with machine learning, and there are open source tools for us to use. The future of security operations is certainly going to be in the big data space, and that has some good implications for what we can do with hunting because it, in some ways, brings us back to those early days. In those early generation SOCs, we had access to all of these logs. Now we are getting access to all of this data again, albeit in a different way.